Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing great and that you're not yet cuckoo from all this spending time indoors. So I think today is my most requested video ever. Every time I post a video, someone has to comment, show us how you sew. So I thought I'd do a basics video, literally just how to sew, how to just get a new skill popping during this quarantine period. Honestly, this is the best time to learn something new. You can learn how to knit, you can learn how to sew, you can learn how to draw, you can learn how to rap. Anyway, I really hope you guys find this video helpful. If you do, don't forget to just share it with your mom, your friends, your dad, your sugar daddy. It doesn't matter, just share it, spread the message, and I'll highly appreciate that. So before, oh, my pug is just, he's here, he's running into the room. Okay. Hello, Billy. You want to say hi? Hi, Billy. Hello. Oh, he's having a treat, so. Okay. I got it. He's gotta go get it. Okay. Before we get into the video, I just wanted to tell you guys what type of sewing machine I own. So this is a Brother CS6000i, and I love her so much. Yes, it's a her because, so this is a Brother CS6000i. I got it off Amazon for about $300 and she's cute. I love her. She is honestly the best addition to my life after Billy. Hopefully my boyfriend isn't watching this video. So yeah, I really love this sewing machine. It was my first electric sewing machine and I'd highly recommend it. I've had it for a year now and she is still popping, she's still strong, she's still going. She is in the race, honey. She has not let me down at all. So I highly recommend this machine. And if you don't have this exact machine, don't worry. The base of the pasta is the same. You know, if you're making a pasta, you have pasta, that's the same. What I'm trying to say is even if you have a different brand of sewing machine, the threading, the basics are usually around the same thing. They basically revolve around the same gist. So once you have an idea of how things are done, you can translate that into your sewing machine and you're going to be good. So without any further ado, let's get into this sewing machine. Not literally, just it's fine. You get what I mean. So here is my sewing machine in all her glory. She is a beauty. I am married to her. She is my husband and I love her, okay? I love her so much. So this is just basically what she looks like. And as you can see, if I turn her over, this machine has 59 stitches. Honestly, all you need is the straight stitches, the zigzag stitches, the lightning bolt, and buttonholes. If you're going to be sewing, that's very basic and that's what you'll need. So don't feel the need to go out to get a machine with like 200 stitches. They do exist, and obviously the more the functionality and the diversity, the more expensive she's going to be because she's bringing more to the table. So I am okay with these stitches. Maybe someday I'll be wild enough to explore the other stitches, but for now the first row and the buttonholes are all I use. So all I can do is recommend you get a machine with those basic stitches and you will be fine. So don't stress about it. When we move over to the other side, you can see she's beautiful. So this machine has a back stitch. So this is basically what you press to have your stitching go back and forth. We're going to get into that in the video. And this is what locks your upper thread and the bobbin thread together so that you have a stitch that's very secure. And this button is to raise your needle. So most machines will maybe have a thing you can just toggle up and down. Is that the proper? I don't know. Okay, but this machine has a button you just press. So when you're sewing, you have to raise your needle. It has to be up and your presser foot has to be up. We're going to get into this in a minute. So this machine also has a speed control. So when it's at 1 triangle, it's very slow. And when it's at 3, it's super fast. Even I'm scared of the 3. So I usually put it in the middle between the 2 and the 3. And that's perfect for me. I am able to control the fabric. I'm able to tell her, sit down, ma'am. I'm the boss, so you better listen. So just adjust the speeds and see what exactly you're comfortable with. And I promise you with time, you're gonna be a pro, like me. I'm kidding. I'm not yet a pro. So the machine also has a hand wheel, and this is to just basically lower your needle. Look at the needle, it's going down, and you turn it, it goes up. So I rarely use this, but it's good to use, especially if you've just started sewing, to lock your threads together. So you always turn it towards your direction, never away unless you're raising your needle. And this is good to remember, especially if you're trying to interlock your threads. And that is the hand wheel. And when you turn the machine, wow, that was loud. Okay, so this is a side view of the machine. As you can see, she has some nostrils to breathe. This, I think, is a ventilation for the machine. Always make sure this is not covered up while sewing. She needs to breathe. She needs her space to perform. So make sure this is open and ready to receive air, basically. Just allow it open for ventilation. And right here we have where you plug in your cord for electricity. Honestly, that escaped me for a minute. So you just put this in, push it in, don't be scared. Oh, okay, yeah, she's secure. So this cord right here, as you can see, she is a beautiful cord and she's attached now. And on the other end of the cord is this power plug. So this is basically what you plug into the socket to make sure the machine is going well. She's on. She can't work if she's off. So this is an electric machine, and you just turn the power switch on to turn her on and off to turn her off. So when it's nice and plugged in, when I turn my machine on, the light comes on. And you are ready to sew, baby. Not yet. Let's just cover some more basics, okay? So when you turn it on, the light comes on. When you turn it off, the light goes off. And we have another on the back of the machine. Whoa, that is making some weird noises. So on the back of the machine, we have this small hole. She is tiny, but she is important. So she's very tiny, and her purpose is for the foot pedal. And the foot pedal is this beauty right here. So this is basically what you step on to get your machine going. So just like that, just imagine this is my foot. We're just gonna step on her to make her go. Then you release to make her stop. So this foot pedal is what you plug into this small hole right here. So what I wanted to say is, if you step on the foot pedal very hard, it's going to go very fast if your speed setting is at the fastest setting. But if you put this on slow, no matter how hard you press on your foot pedal, nothing will budge. It will be very slow. So just use this to adjust your speeds. So don't be scared to start slow, okay? It's okay. We all started somewhere. So this part right here is where the magic happens. So this is basically where you have your presser foot, you have your needle, you have your needle plate, you have your bobbin case. And for the bobbin case, you just pull this to the right and you take her out, put her aside, and then inside there is a bobbin. So I just did a project that used black thread, and you basically put this in to form your bottom thread. So I'm going to show you how you wind this bobbin so that you have bottom thread. So I recommend when you're dealing with anything in this area, just make sure your machine is turned off. That's because things do happen, and this is a needle. You can imagine the kind of accidents that can happen. And here we have the needle, and I'm going to show you how to change your needle. You do need to change your needle after some time because wear and tear. And we have our lever right here. So this is basically what puts your presser foot down. When you're sewing, you need the presser foot to be down because this action holds the fabric in place. And for this particular machine, it doesn't start if your presser foot isn't down when sewing, which is a good feature. It reminds you to put it down. And this machine also comes with an automatic threader. I'm going to show you how to use that too. And at the back right here, as you can see, there's a small button, and this is what helps you change your presser foot. So now we're going to turn the machine on. And as you see, she is like, I'm ready to go. What are we sewing today? So the corresponding numbers are here, okay? They're here. they're marked for you. So if I want to do a straight stitch, I usually use either 0, 0 or 0, 1. You just use this dials over here to just change everything. So on this side, which is my left side, I can change the number, okay? And this changes the number on the left hand side. So as you can see, my stitches go all the way up to 59. So I can go all the way up to 5. And then I go back to 0. So 5, 0. And this button on the right changes the second number. So this is useful when you're selecting the stitches. If you want to do a zigzag stitch, you change it to 4. There we go. You're ready to sew your zigzag stitch. And what I really love about this sewing machine is right here, it shows you the foot you should be using. So a sewing machine that's a bit more technical will come with a few feet. And if you're going to sew something like an overlock stitch, as you can see, it changed to G. So that means I need to change my presser foot to G. Otherwise, we're going to be having problems. Needles are going to be breaking. You don't want conflict in this sewing machine. You want everyone to be peaceful and happy. So I do recommend you check exactly what foot you should be using. So for an overlock stitch, I'm used to the stitches, so I know if I'm doing an overlock stitch, I use G. But one day I forgot and I broke my overlocking foot and I had to buy a new one. So just be careful. Observe the machine, read your manual before you start sewing just to see exactly who should be where, and that way you don't have fights erupting in your household. So I'm going to start with the basic straight stitch because yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. Mostly you're going to be using the straight stitch and the zigzag stitch and the buttonhole. Anyone tells you need fancy stitches, they're lying to you and you need to cut them off. I'm kidding. If you want to do this fancy stitches, it's up to you. You'll have the corresponding feet, and for different sewing machines they vary. So I just want to cover the basics, which are in every sewing machine. So we're going to start with the straight stitch when we start sewing. So at the top of my sewing machine, I have a bobbin winder, and this is what you use to wind your bobbin. Your bobbin is what goes underneath to form your bottom thread. So you wind your bobbin with a sewing machine. Sometimes it's just easier because some people hand wind, and I feel like hand winding is not so effective because this machine does it perfectly. And this metal thread right here is where you'll put your thread that forms the upper thread. And then up here we have the tension dial. I never mess with her, mostly because I don't want her to fight me. And honestly, for most projects, your tension should be at 4. The only time you change it is maybe when you're shirring, and that is working with elastic thread, or you're working with very light and flowy fabrics like silks. If you are working with light threads, I recommend you change this maybe to a 1 or a 2 or right in between. But for most projects, a 4 is fine. You will be fine. So just leave it at 4. Your sewing machine will come set at 4. So just, they know what they're doing. So just keep it at 4 for most projects and you'll be fine. So now we're going to wind our bobbin, and this is super simple to do. Basically, what you need to do is get some thread and make sure you're using good quality thread. It does contribute a lot to your projects. I used to think, whatever, use a cheap thread, it's fine. But sometimes the quality does go a long way in helping your machine perform beautifully. You want her to put her best foot forward. So I do recommend you invest in good quality thread. So I'm just going to use this white thread over here, and I always put it on my metallic thing. So I put it with a string coming off the right side. So it's rotating clockwise, and that's the recommendation for my particular machine. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this thread and we're going to wrap it around this tiny metallic bit. And for my sewing machine, you usually do it clockwise. So I'm just going to pull this until it's taut right here, not too tight. So I'm going to take my bobbin, and they usually have a very tiny hole at the top. So you're just going to pass your thread through that tiny hole. If you're not shaking like me, then you should do a better job at this. So now with my bobbin thread going through the top, I'm going to put this on my bobbin winder. Make sure she snaps in place. And then you're going to push this like that towards this side. This just helps everyone stay in their right place. And what you're going to do is you're going to turn your sewing machine on. And with your sewing machine on, you're going to step on the foot pedal because you need to wind your bobbin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on to the top thread and I'm going to wind my bobbin by stepping on my foot pedal, and that will get everyone in motion. Everyone will know what they need to do and we will have a wound bobbin. So I just press on it. And as you can see, it's starting to wind. So I need to get rid of this excess thread now because she's a bit much. I'm just going to use my seam ripper for this, but ideally you want to use the scissors. So I just snipped off the excess thread that was hanging, and now we're just going to continue winding our bobbin. So just step on your foot pedal and it does the job for you. So you can keep going until your bobbin is so full. But honestly, for most projects, unless you have very bulky projects, you're not going to need this bobbin to be full. And if you only have a few of them, you don't want to be wasting so much thread. So I do recommend you wound a bit more than you think you need, but don't fill it up unless you have a very, very bulky project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it at that. So now that our bobbin is wound, you're just going to push it so that you release the bobbin, get her out of her prison. She has served her sentence. She's now ready to join the community. So you're going to take her off and you're going to just snip this thread like that. So you have your bobbin. I have very little thread on here. Maybe I should have wound it a bit more. But as you can see, we now have thread on our bobbin and we're ready to put this into our bobbin case. I'm going to remove this because this setup right here is to wind your bobbin, but you need this to be your upper thread for your machine after you've wound your bobbin. So I'm going to show you how to thread the machine so that you can have things okay, things working, things are going great. So threading your machine is super easy. Just read your manual and see exactly where everyone needs to be. But for this sewing machine, you need to pull on your thread. So you see you have this hanging thread, and most machines are numbered. So if I bend this over towards you, as you can see, we have some numbers. This is 1 right here, and then you get 2. It's engraved into the machine. You get 3, 4. So most machines are numbered just to guide you. So just follow the numbers and you will be fine with threading your machine. But if you don't have numbers, just read your manual and it will guide you on the appropriate way you can thread your machine. I'm just taking my thread and I'm passing it through under this metal bit. Once I've done number 1, I'm going to do number 2, which is basically passing it through this slit right here. Make sure she really goes in there. And then number 3 is under here. And then I'm going to pass this, make sure you stick to the slit. So I'm going to pass this through number 4. And there's this hook that I need to pass through. I'm just going to make sure my thread does go through this hook. And then I'm going to continue downwards to number 5. So this is basically just following the arrows and the numbers just to see how I need to do this. Once you go through number 5, which is right here, we now need to thread our needle. And to do that, I have an automatic needle threader, which is very convenient. So to do that, I have to pass it through this metal bit right here. As you can see, my thread has gone into that bit. And then I'm going to wrap it around this bit right here. So it's this small hook, and different machines have different automatic threaders. So just follow your machine and see what works best. So just wrap it around that bit right there. I hope you guys can see. And to automatically thread my needle, I'm just going to lower the lever, pull the thread through, and then let it go. And it's automatically threaded. Now I just need to pull my thread from the back, and that is it. And I'm just going to put this underneath my presser foot and take it to the back of the machine. I do have a small cutter on the side of my machine, so I can cut off the excess thread just by passing it through that, and we are good to go. So this thread goes to the back. So now our machine is threaded and the upper thread is good to go. So now we need to put in the bottom thread, which is why we wound the bobbin. So my machine instructs me that the thread needs to come from the left hand side of my bobbin. So I'm just going to plop this into my bobbin case just like that. Okay, and as you can see, I'm just pulling it under. So there's this slit right here that's very, very small. And you basically need to pass your thread through this slit and just have it come out the other side. It has arrows on it to guide you, which makes your life a whole lot easier. So I'm just going to hold my machine very carefully. And as you can see, it's spinning anti-clockwise. So that's for this sewing machine. Just make sure you're putting it right according to your sewing machine. So I'm just going to pull this thread through this slit, just like that, and it cuts off the excess thread at the end, and your bobbin thread is now in place. So now our bobbin thread is in place and we're technically ready to sew. All we need to do is put back in the bobbin cover because that is very essential. So I'm just going to snap that back in. And now everyone is happy. So my sewing machine has this lever right here, and this controls the presser foot. So if I put it down, my presser foot goes down. If I pull it up, my presser foot goes up. So every time you're sewing, your presser foot has to be down, and when you're done sewing, it goes back up so that you're able to take your fabric and get it out of the sewing machine. So just bear that in mind. So I'm going to take 2 pieces of fabric. This is actually a DIY that went wrong. So it's a sleeve of a shirt and we have 2 pieces of fabric here. You will always sew on 2 pieces of fabric unless you're gathering. That's when you sew on 1 piece. So I'm just going to use this edge right here. It has fabric on both sides. It's a longer fold, and I'm just going to do a stitch right here, a straight stitch. So I'm just going to put my fabric beneath my presser foot. So I'm going to align it with 5/8 of an inch. So your sewing machine will have markings. You have 5/8, you have an inch, and it goes all the way up to 2 inches. So you can align your fabric with one of them just to make sure your seam allowance is equal all through. So once my fabric is aligned, I'm going to use this lever here to just lower my presser foot. That way my fabric is in place. And as you can see, my presser foot is now on my fabric, and that fabric is not going anywhere without my permission. So to sew your fabric, you're going to step on your foot pedal and let your needle go forward a few times. So I'm just going to do that. So step on it, and as you can see, the needle is moving forward. So always backstitch when you start and end your sewing. That way your stitching does not come unraveling on you. So press your backstitch and step on your foot pedal at the same time. And this basically just goes over the top stitches, the front stitches, sorry, and it just secures your stitch. So now we're just going to do a regular stitch and then back stitch at the end as well. Make sure you align your fabric so that you're stitching in a straight line. And once I get to the point where I'm ending my stitching, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to press the back stitch button as I step on my foot pedal. That way we can have a few stitches going back and it secures our stitch. So I'm just going to do that. And I'm just making it slower than the front stitch just to show you guys. And once you've done that, you've gone back a few times, you're now done with your stitching. So to remove my fabric, I'm going to press this button which raises my needle. As you can see, she went up. And I'm also going to push this lever up, and that raises my presser foot. And now I can take out my fabric from beneath my presser foot. So I'm just going to cut this off, the excess thread. And that's it. So once you're done sewing, you will have stitching that looks like this. And as you can see, at the points where we backstitched, you have reinforced thread. And this is basically what secures your thread. And you have hanging threads here, so you do need to cut those off. And that's basically how you do a straight stitch. So let me cut off the excess thread, and you will do the same thing at the back as well. And as you can see, you now have your very own straight stitch. You did it. You're amazing. And as I said, you use this on woven fabrics, but now I'm going to show you how to do a zigzag stitch, which you use on knit fabrics or stretchy fabrics. So to do a zigzag stitch, you need to switch your stitching to zigzag stitch. On my machine, I just usually do number 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we are ready to do our zigzag stitch. So I've gotten stretchy fabric to demonstrate this. As you can see, she accommodates everyone. She is ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold this. Oh, by the way, you always sew on the wrong side of the fabric. Do not sew on the right side. You want that seam to be hidden. hidden, so always sew on the wrong side of the fabric, and that means the right sides will be together so that you can sew on the wrong side. So I'm just going to fold in an edge here just to have two pieces of fabric that I'm joining together, and I'm going to slide that underneath my presser foot, align that with my seam allowance, and put my presser foot down. So I'm going to step on my foot pedal, do a couple of stitches forward. And as you can see, the needle moves back and forth. I don't know if you can see that, but that's what it does. So now I'm going to press the back stitch button and step on my foot pedal to just do a back stitch. And it just goes over that stitch again, secures it in place, and I'm just going to continue stitching. And then once I get to the end of my stitching, I will press the back stitch button again and do a back stitch. Just a few, you can do 3 or 4 or more, it's up to you. So now I'm just going to raise my presser foot, raise my needle, and then my fabric is ready to come out. So there is the fabric we just sewed, and I'm going to get rid of the excess threads. Once I get rid of the excess thread, as you can see, this zigzag stitch looks so different from the straight stitch. So what the zigzag stitch does is it allows for stretch. So as you can see, the threads are not snapping when I stretch on it. I can stretch on this and this bad boy will not budge. So if you use a straight stitch on stretchy materials, if you put stress on them, they will break. So zigzag stitches are used for knit fabrics or stretchy fabrics. That way you have that allowance, which is always important, especially if you've had a heavy lunch and you need the garment to accommodate that. So I love the zigzag stitch as well. It's my favorite, and now I'm getting into our love story, which is not why you came here. And as you can see, the points we backstitched are so clear because you see the thread going in again once you backstitch, and that is secure as hell. But I wanted to tell you guys, if you do make a mistake, let's just say you didn't sew in a straight line or you don't like how it looks for some reason, you can always undo this. The backstitch part is going to be difficult to undo, but it is possible to undo it. And to do that, you need this tool called a seam ripper, and she usually looks something like this, and you're going to use this edge to seam rip. And to do that, you just pass it through under the thread and you snap them. You break them up, okay? Their relationship is over, so just snap them. And sometimes you do need to go through the individual threads, and that might take a while, but basically it's not impossible to undo a stitch you just did. You just need this tool. So I'm just trying to undo them. They have a strong bond. These people are bonded so much. So you basically just break the threads as you go, and sometimes you're able to do this continuously. Sometimes you need to do it on single threads, but as you can see, our stitching now no longer exists at this position. Their marriage is over. So that's sad, but this tool comes so in handy. So if you're going to start sewing, you will need this because you will make mistakes, trust me. So it's best to have this tool on deck. That way you can just call her in when she's needed and she is of service to you. So at this point, I want to sew a buttonhole. The thread at the top should always be at the bottom of your presser foot. So if it comes up, make sure you push her back down. So I'm going to show you how to sew a buttonhole. And to sew a buttonhole, we need to change the presser foot. And that's because when we come here, if we want to do buttonhole number 30, we will change this to 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 0, 0, 0. Oh, that made no sense, but you saw what I was doing. So as you can see, my machine is telling me to switch to foot A, and this currently is foot J that you have on the machine. At the back of my foot, there's this button that you just press and it releases the presser foot. So that way you can change her, let her go, move on, she's over you. So now that this presser foot is off, I'm going to install presser foot A. So the buttonhole presser foot is quite large, and you put the button on this side and then you sew the button on this side. So let me show you how to do it. So once you have the buttons for your project, I'm going to use this button. You're going to take your presser foot and the button goes here. The downside of this is you can't really have a very big button. The biggest you can have is this size. I'm going to put my button there and I'm going to pull this so that the button is securely in place. So now that my button is there, you're going to reattach your press fit. So to reattach your press fit, you're just going to align the metallic bit on your press fit with this bit over here, okay? And then you're just going to lower your lever and it will snap in place. Did you hear that? That means it's reattached. And when you raise your lever, your press fit is attached. So now we have our buttonhole press fit attached and it's time to sew a buttonhole. So the beauty of this sewing machine is with buttonholes, it automatically does it for you. Like you do not need to do anything. It just guides around and once it's done, it will let you know and you take out your fabric, you have a buttonhole. And I'm just going to take a piece of fabric, slide it underneath my press fit. And once that's done, I'm going to lower my press fit, just like that. So on this side, there's this lever. As you can see, it has 2 arrows. You need to pull this down to align with this bit so that the machine knows the size of your button. So I'm just going to pull this down. And as you can see, she is now in line. So this way, the machine will know the size of the button you're sewing, and that way the buttonhole will fit your button. So now it's just time to sit back, relax, enjoy a glass of wine as the machine does everything for you. So this machine sews the buttonhole by itself. You don't need to do anything except press the foot pedal. And when it's done, it's going to let you know and you can take out your fabric and you have a buttonhole. So let's do that and I'll show you guys the buttonhole. So I'm just going to press on the foot pedal and let this girl do her thing. So just press on it and let it go. So once your machine is done sewing, it will just stop and you can take your foot off the foot pedal and that's literally it. You will have a buttonhole sewn on. So just raise your lever, okay? And then raise your needle and then take out your fabric. So you can push this back in. You don't need her anymore, she's fired. And you just take out your fabric, cut off the excess thread. It will come out with a lot of thread this time. So as you can see, we have a buttonhole with excess thread. So I'm just going to cut off the excess thread. As you can see, this is buttonhole number 30, and that's what we were sewing on our machine. And number 30 looks like that. So as you can see, exactly what you asked for. You're not being given an order you didn't ask for at the restaurant. You are almost done with your buttonhole. As you can see, she's sewn on, she looks great, but she doesn't have the opening for the button yet. So what you need to do for this to be a functional buttonhole, you need to take your seam ripper. And what you're going to do is rip out the fabric. That way you can open a slit and that's where your button will go. So I'm just going to push this in, just pierce it with your seam ripper. It's really easy to do. And then you're going to slide this through. So be careful with this so that you don't rip past the top of the buttonhole. I'm just going to push it through. Just slowly. Okay. And once I've done that, as you can see, we now have an opening. So once you've ripped this through, you now have an opening for your button. And if we slide our button through this, we have the perfect buttonhole. So as you can see, the button goes through with ease and the buttonhole looks cute. So now I'm going to show you guys how to change your needle. And sometimes you need to do that because she breaks. Sometimes she's just sick and tired of being in the game and she wants to retire. So you do need to change your needle often. So to change your needle, you will use this metallic thing. It usually comes with your sewing machine and you're just going to unscrew it. So you're going to place it in between this groove and you're going to turn this towards you to just loosen the needle. So as you can see, it easily just turns. You can use your hand once you've loosened it. And this will make the needle come right off, just like that. I do recommend you turn off your sewing machine, so let's do that. Just so that there's no accidents or anything. So, oh, my needle is caught up in a web. I love triangle indeed. So usually your needle comes with markings, and I don't know if you can see this, but this says 90/14, and that's an average needle size. And if you want bigger needles for like denim, thicker ones, they do vary, and that's why you need to know how to change your needles. So basically it comes with a rounded side and a flat side at the back. I don't know if you guys can see that. That side is completely flat, and that is a side that will be towards the back of your machine, and the rounded edge will be towards the front. To put this beauty back in, as I said, there's a flat edge and there's a rounded edge, and you're going to take the flat edge towards the back. So what you're going to do is you're just going to remove the thread out of the way, and then you're just going to slide this into the hole right there. Make sure the flat side is towards the back, and you're just going to push it up. And as you can see, the needle top just came here. Let me take it out so that you guys can see. It comes out, you slide it in. That's what he said. So to make sure your needle doesn't fall off when sewing, you do need to screw it back in. And to do that, you just turn this away from you, and this secures your needle. Don't make it too tight, because that can also make you break your needle. So just make sure it's secure enough for you to not be able to make this budge around, okay? So once you screw that back in, that's it. You can now change your needles according to different projects. You can change them when they break, because trust me, you will break a needle. It is part of life. We've accepted it. So it's good to know how to change them. That way, in case it happens, you're not scared and you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? So that is the end of this video, guys. I really hope you learned something from it. I know it was a bit lengthy, but I wanted to create a guide in case you just got your sewing machine and you want to get the basics down. I hope this video helps you. So I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, do give it a thumbs up, and hopefully I'll be seeing you guys soon. Bye, guys.